All right, hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is chapter 2.2, where we are going to review and introduce how to solve a one-step equation. So, by the end of this video, we should be able to solve equations using the addition-subtraction property of equality. We should be able to solve equations using the multiplication-division property of equality. And we should be able to solve equations by multiplying by the reciprocal. So let's go ahead and talk about what it means to solve an equation. So we have an equation, which we learned in the last chapter, is when we have a variable, some kind of expression set equal to another number. Okay, and what it means to solve an equation means we're going to do some stuff until we get the variable by itself, and so we figure out what the x equals, right? The whole point of solving an equation is to figure out the number or numbers that we plug in for x that make this a true statement. So what number would I have to plug in for x to make this be a true statement? Okay, and the way that we do that is by performing an inverse operation. So an inverse operation or inverse operations are two operations that undo each other, such as addition, subtraction. So think of it this way, right? If I had 3 plus 7, that's 10. Well, if I took 10 minus 7, I would go back to 3. So notice how the addition, subtraction right here, they undid that operation. When I add 7, I got 10. When I subtracted 7 from 10, I went back to 3. Okay? So addition, subtraction, they undo each other. Multiplication and division, same thing. They undo each other. 3 times 6 is 18, but 18 divided by 6 is 3. When I undo that, I can undo a multiply by 6 by dividing by 6. When we perform the same inverse operation on each side of an equation, we produce an equivalent equation. So whenever I do something to one side of an equation, as long as I do it to the other side, the equations are equivalent. They're not the same, but they are equal to each other. So equivalent equations are equations that have the same solution. So let's just really quickly here show you. If I have an equation like this, what I can do is, if I want to undo this minus 4, what I can do to both sides is add 4. And when I do that, notice that this kind of eliminates, right? Minus 4 plus 4 makes 0. So I end up with 2x equals 10. Notice how I have eliminated this. I am closer to getting the x by itself, and I still have an equivalent equation. So let's go ahead and do some examples here. So we're going to solve an equation using addition and or subtraction. So here we have x plus 7 equals negative 4. Now, looking at this, I'm sure you can figure out that the x has to be negative 3, because negative 3 plus 7 is how you get 4. All right, that's great. If you can do that, perfect. We need to learn a process here, though, not just find answers. The process we need to follow is to get the x isolated, meaning by itself on this side. To do that, we need to undo the plus 7. So to undo the plus 7, we need to subtract 7. And I'm going to do, if I do that to the left to make an equivalent expression, I need to do that to the right as well. So notice that I had a plus 7 here, so I subtracted 7. And then I did the same thing to the right-hand side. So 7 minus 7 makes 0, leaving the x the only thing on the left-hand side. And the 4 minus 7 then makes negative 3. So this number that we intuitively could figure out, right, by plugging into the equation, we can see is the correct solution. Again, we're learning a process here. So here, again, x minus 12 equals 3. What number has to be here, the x, to make this right? I'm sure you could look at that and say it's 15. Fantastic. I'm glad you have that skill, right? But remember, we're learning a process of solving here because it's going to get more complex. I need to undo the minus 12. And to undo the minus 12, I'm going to add 12. And if I'm doing that to the left-hand side, I have to also do that to the right-hand side. This makes 0, and this becomes 15, so x is 15. Okay, I've got some practice questions that I'd like you to do, so this will be the end of this video. Go do those practice questions, and then you can start the next video in this series to see those worked out, and then the next part where we look at multiplication and division. So we'll see you in a second.